The very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier Podcast, where I will sit down and converse with the superstars, the overachievers, the masters of our craft. Each episode will be a deep dive into their personal philosophies, their habits, the tools they use, and the secrets to not only their success, but overcoming failure as well.
First, find somebody you can mimic, then find somebody you can stand, and then try to focus on one style until you master that style.
So if you say I can't do something, well, you're absolutely right. But if you say you're going to, you're absolutely right with that too.
People say that you shouldn't define yourself by your work. That is not true.
You know what Dave Farley does when he's, lucky enough to be at the World Equestrian Games? I'm watching other people work.
Yeah.
I don't think we do that enough.
This podcast is for all of you out there who share my passion for the job and the desire to always improve. These interviews will put you in touch with the inner workings of the role models we all want to emulate. So let's get to it.
There's only so many hours in a day, and it's a matter of what you do with them.
Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of the Mullins Farrier Podcast. My first guest, Chris Gregory, was a natural choice for me. Chris has been my mentor and teacher for many years now. He is a role model in every sense of the word. He has continuously held himself to impossibly high standards and has always achieved them. Each new goal forcing him to get better and learn something new. With each accomplishment, he takes the opportunity to pass on what he has learned. Chris has been a professional horseshoer since 1987. He holds several academic degrees, including a master's degree in human resource development, 2 bachelor's degrees with a minor, and an associate's degree. He has been a member of the American Farriers team, competed 18 times at the World Championships Blacksmith Competition in Calgary, and has been in the top 10 at that contest. He earned his CJF from the AFA in 1991 and the title of Fellow of the Worshipful Company of Farriers at the age of 30. He is also the first American to be an examiner for a Fwcf exam. Chris is the creator of the Farrier exam system that has been adopted in Brazil, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and in North America as well. Thousands of students have graduated from Heartland Horseshoeing School that Chris runs with his wife Kelly, son Cody, Cody's wife Kirsty, Chris's daughter Jacqueline, and her husband Cameron. There are many other accomplishments I could list, but I'm sure you'd rather hear what Chris has to say than from me the whole podcast. One thing I'm sure you will agree with is that if this whole shoeing thing doesn't pan out, Chris could have a promising career in radio. His voice would be perfect for one of those late-night call-in radio shows. This is Lovers and Other Strangers with your host, Chris Gregory. I couldn't have picked a better first guest. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. So let's get to it. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sitting here with Chris Gregory. And Chris, I'd like to say it's an honor to sit here with you. I remember meeting you for the first time back in 2010 when you were a judge and clinician for the Ontario Farriers Convention that year. I volunteered to drive you back to the hotel, and during that ride, we had a conversation just about finding the right mentor. So I was fortunate over the next few years to work with several, and then eventually found my way down to Heartland Horseshoeing School to work with you and Cody. To use the cliche, you have forgotten more than I have yet to learn is fitting in this situation. How did this journey begin for you, and how did you come to learn so much about this trade?
Well, I went to college on a rodeo scholarship, and I was hiring a horseshoer, but my steer wrestling horse kept losing his shoe, and I had done a little shoeing, so he was charging $25, and he got to the point where he charged me $5 every time he lost a shoe, and that was like twice a week. 1986, that was a lot of money, so I thought I'd start shoeing him, and then I was shoeing my buddy's horses, and pretty soon I was shoeing so many horses I never intended to, and it became kind of what I was doing. So I'd go to the rodeos. My first year of college rodeo, I did pretty good rodeoing. My second year of college rodeo, I was horrible in the arena, but I still made a lot of money because I'd go to the rodeos. I had to be there early, and I had to stay late because I had so many horses to do. And I was getting $23 to shoe a horse. I was getting $18 to reset one. I was getting $12 to trim one. And in 1987, I was rolling in money, compared to my buddies I had.
Right.
My buddies were all rodeo buddies, so they were all so broke they couldn't even pay attention.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of how I turned into horseshoer. Went ahead and finished up college. Kelly and I got married in 88, graduated college in 91. We actually graduated with $12,000 cash and no debt, and both of us done with college. So all of that off a horse's feet.
Wow, not many people could say that graduating from college. So then as you were coming up, who were your mentors or role models?
Well, I had several. Danny Ward was extremely gracious and humble and polite and generous. He always gave of his time and his knowledge and his equipment. So he was mentoring me to become an educator when I was stationed in Fort Lee, Virginia. Every chance I got, I'd go to Martinsville and learn what I could from him. Got to work with his students and kind of hone some skills on actually teaching. Then when I got to Colorado, started my first school. I got there at the end of 91. Kelly was pregnant with Cody. We had everything we owned in a truck and a 2-horse trailer, and the horse was in it as well. And so there wasn't, we didn't have a ton of stuff. We got to Colorado, and the guy that hired me out there to start the school, when I got out there, the deal had changed just a little bit. Everything done on a handshake, and it wasn't going to be quite as much as we had thought. Just out of the Army, no business at all in Colorado. We had to rent a place that actually we could put a horse, and Kelly is a month from giving birth. And it's cold, and we have no customers. And we were really broke. I tell everybody we were fighting over the pork and beans and licking the label. And then Cody was born. He was $12,000, and my half of that was like $7,000. So to say we were way behind is really an understatement. But I was doing all handmaids at the time, and I went to the Denver Polo Club, and I shot a horse for this gal named Brenda Brooks. And this horse had just come out of the mountains off of a dude string, and he was hitting himself for every step, and he could hardly walk with what he had on. And since I was doing all handmaids, I put square toes with extended heels with quarter clips and heel cocks. You have a horse that's hitting himself, he ain't going to hit himself with those on.
No.
And that lady stood there and watched me, and she just kind of said, kind of crazy, but well, I'm going to go ride this horse while you shoe the next one. We'll see what happens. And she came back in a little while. I was shoeing the second horse, and she said, hey, listen, I got a few more horses in my barn. Can you shoe some more horses? And I mean, we're so busted, right? I was getting $60 to shoe a horse, all handmaids, Denver, Colorado, 1991. And I said, of course. Well, I ended up with like 60 horses.
Oh, wow.
That was huge. And the guy actually gave me $200 for shoeing those 2 horses that night for him, which was, that was huge. You can just imagine. Anyway, that worked out really good. And when Brenda left the Denver Polo Club, her customers went to a bunch of different places, and I ended up with horses all over the Denver, Colorado area. So when we left there in 94, I had a substantial little practice going.
Oh. So you left Colorado.
Yeah. Well, it turns out I'm not that employable, It wasn't my school. I started it, I was running it, but it wasn't my school. And I wanted to do things a little bit different. I was making very good money. By the time we left, we were making very, very good money. Cody was 3. Jacqueline was just a little under 2. I loaded them up in vehicles we had, and we went to Missouri, bought 10 acres. And, the banker, we walked in with a business plan. I'm 25 years old, and I give him this business plan that says I want to start a horseshoeing school. And he really looks at me like I smoked my lunch. He's just like, you're never going to survive. You're not going to be able to survive shoeing horses in Barton County, and a school will never make it. But I'm about to repossess that property every other month, and I'll just repossess it from you in 3 years. I was like, great, where do I sign? And so then we had to put down pretty much everything we had saved, whenever you get in that kind of deal. I didn't know at the time. And sometimes it's a blessing to look back and understand what you didn't know. But if you're self-employed and have no business in the area and you're only 25 years old, when you go into an area and you tell a banker you want to borrow money, they don't care to lend it to you.
I wonder why.
I don't. Looking back, I understand, but at the time it seemed harsh.
Right.
What do you mean you can't see this dream? Of course it's going to work. So we were broke in 91. We really built up good by 94. Moved to Missouri, and we're broke again. And we have this house. We have 10 acres. We have a barn that's really. My dad looked at it and said, "Son, just light it." He said, this is not worth rebuilding. But we didn't have a choice, right? And so the bunkhouse that you now know at the horseshoeing school,
right,
The original Heartland Horseshoeing School was just the bunkhouse in our house, and the students would live upstairs, and they would forge downstairs. It was an old dairy barn, and so the downstairs they would where the milking stanchions were was the shop.
Wow.
And that was the boys' bunkhouse.
Right.
We rebuilt it best we could. We couldn't afford a tape measure, so I was using baling twine, and I was marking it with a Sharpie, and then I'd go cut a board, so that's how we were measuring things. We were broke. I had a fireplace in that house there, so Kelly she hung some blankets over the opening between that room and the next, and we pretty much all lived in that room during the wintertime.
Oh, wow.
Because we could burn wood. So we arrived in September of 94. Here's how it was. July of 94 in Colorado, I made $11,000. In September of 94 in Lamar, Missouri, I made $45. So it's a little bit different.
A little harsh, yeah.
And you got a wife and 2 kids, and they're all looking at you saying, is this going to work? I flew back to Colorado every 6 weeks for a few years. And I had a graduate out there named Bob DeSarmo, very, very talented farrier. And I gave him pretty much my business except for about 35 horses. And then he would pick me up. He'd put me up. He would let me use his rig. All the money was mine, and I would work him like a Hebrew slave. And so, that's how I'd bring back $2,500 to Missouri, and that meant a lot.
Wow. So then in those times when money was that tight and with the family and all of that pressure, what compelled you to keep going forward? Where did you get your why from?
All right. So I know the world as a whole is not religious, but faith is really hard to explain. But once you have faith, then you really don't have to worry about it. And so it's unbelievable how this works. So in 1995, we had a 1-ton truck, and I blew the motor. And it was $5,700 and change to put a new motor in it. And I couldn't afford to scrap it. I couldn't afford to sell it. I couldn't afford to fix it. It was bleak. If you would have been our financial advisor, you'd have been like, really, you should be looking for a job and trying to make $10 an hour if you're lucky and see if you could survive,
Right.
But I got insomnia, and I was praying. I was like, God, you gotta help us. Something's got to give, And I thought, what I'll do is I'll write some articles, and then I'll sell them to Western Horseman. That's a huge magazine in 1995. It was. Man, they'll probably pay $10,000 an article, and we'll be good to go. Well, I knew nothing about writing articles. So the first night I wrote 5 articles. I sent them all to Western Horseman. They wrote me back and said, hey, we love these. We'll take 3 of them. We need some pictures, which I didn't have any pictures. I hadn't taken a picture. Like, we had a picture of when we got married, and then there was like one picture of the school in Colorado, and then like one picture of the place when we bought it. So we were just not picture takers.
Right.
Everybody takes pictures of everything now. You take
Right.
a picture of your green beans, but
Different time.
different time. Yeah. So I had no pictures. They said they're going to buy the articles, and they would pay a full $165, and they'd pay me once the article came out, which was like 9 months or 10 months later. But it made me believe I could write. So I wrote for the Farrier's Journal, and then pretty soon writing for the Farrier's Journal led to me writing for a bunch of magazines. I've written, I don't really know how many magazines I've been in, but it finally led to the book. And all of this was in a time before social media, when if you were writing articles, it established you as somebody who knew what you were doing.
Right.
And it led to us getting a lot more students. So I was able to get students through that I never would have had. And I really think that blown motor in that truck, in hindsight, was a blessing in disguise. I think God was just trying to push me. As I look back on so many things. I wanted to be on the team so bad back then, and I couldn't make it. And I'd just be out of the money. It seemed like every time I was just 1 or 2 spots out. But if I'd have been on the team in those years, we couldn't have afforded it. It would have been a major hardship for us. So looking back, it was just a huge blessing. And I probably wouldn't have got my fellowship. And the fellowship has been more for getting students than if I'd have been on the team in 1998. There'd be 5 other guys that remember that, but there would be thousands that would never know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where if you get something like the fellowship, it stays with you. So, looking back, there's a lot of decisions that I didn't necessarily make, but were kind of made for me. And I really think I don't worry about anything. I just don't worry. And Kelly, she worries enough about finances for both of us.
Right.
And ever since that truck, I have not worried about finance.
Wow. Okay. Then the fellowship, when did you do that, and what inspired you to head in that direction?
Well, I've always enjoyed testing. I've enjoyed testing from every level. I was told that you couldn't take your fellowship till you're over 40. And this was a time before social media where you couldn't just check it out. You just had to take people's word on it.
Right.
And I found out you could, and I thought, well, by golly, I'm going to go do it. So in 97, I went and I worked with the British Army with Ivan Bell. I was with Sandy Beveridge and Derek Gardner and some really incredible farriers in the United Kingdom. Then I took my associate, was blessed enough to get that, and I went back the following year in 98 and got my fellowship. And so I was a fellow at 30 years old. I do want to say something else back on the mentor thing. Danny Ward was my early mentor in the times right when I was starting to teach. When I got to Colorado, Jim Keith was running a school in Tucumcari, New Mexico. And Jim Keith is one of those people that is so just incredibly talented and artistic. And he just doesn't understand how everybody's not that way. But this man is just, it's really something. Man, whenever we do, I was with the 2-man with him a few times and made a lot of shoes, helped him make tongs. And I learned so much from that man. He was just incredible. It still is. He is just what an icon in our industry. And then when I left Colorado, I started working with Bob Marshall. And Bob Marshall has dissected the moves to make a shoe and dissected the formula. So what I probably told you in 2010 is what I tell a lot of people when it comes to a mentor. First, you need to find somebody that has a body style that you can mimic. Right. So if you're 100 pounds and your mentor is 250 and swings from left field, you're not going to be able to mimic that. So trying to learn from that person would be tough.
Okay.
The next thing is you need to find somebody that has enough of a personality that you don't mind spending time with them, because
that's really important. Yep.
Yeah, because if every other word's the F word, or if it requires drinking late or forging late in the night, and all the other stuff that you may not want to do, then it's going to take away from your learning. So first, find somebody you can mimic, then find somebody you can stand, and then try to focus on one style until you master that style. Once you master that style, then you can start putting other pieces. So when I finally started working with Bob Marshall, I had him down here 11 times, and so it's an expensive thing, especially whenever you're not super wealthy, but I was able to really, really try to focus on getting his style, which has allowed me to, build shoes without too much work and teach it without too much, with it. I can teach it in a way that's predictable, and I can watch a student and know exactly what they're doing and exactly how to help them get to the next level without just, like hit it here. Oh yeah, you got to hit it there. And I can say, this is why you hit it here in this area, in this part of the horn, in this way.
Right.
Because of Bob Marshall's style.
Oh, okay.
So those 3 guys really are at the top of my list. Danny Ward, Jim Keith, and Bob Marshall are the ones that I have to give all the credit to.
Right. Okay. Now, I know that there's quite a bit of a psychology background for you. I have noticed it a lot in your teaching at the school. One of the books that you mentioned to me when I was struggling with testing and just working under that kind of pressure was The Mental Game. And I just wondered, are there any other books that you recommend to people or gift to people in that line of literature?
There's one called The Mental Edge, and it's a really good book, and it's pretty short, pretty concise. Once you've read, there's another one called The Pinnacle. Pinnacle's pretty good too. Once you've read 2 or 3, you find out that it's the same pancake just flipped over,
Right.
It's really,
yeah.
You've got to figure out kind of what works for you. One of my bachelor's degrees is psychology. And so I think that helps me maybe understand a little bit more about where other people are coming from when it comes to competing and stuff, or where I'm coming from. It doesn't always help me win, but at least I can look at it from a little bit of a different perspective.
Right.
The very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter. So if you look at it from a rodeo perspective, let's say you're a calf roper. If you are roping a sick calf, if you're roping a calf in the practice arena, if you're roping the 20th calf of the day, if you're roping at a circuit finals or the NFR, when it's all said and done, you are just roping a calf. But the difference between roping a sick calf in the arena or roping a calf at the NFR is immensely different, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
So from a farrier, when you're shoeing a horse, if you're shoeing your horse, you're shoeing your wife's horse, you're shoeing a horse that's going to the Olympics, you're shoeing a horse that's maybe they turned down $1 million for him last week, or you're shoeing a horse for certification, you're trimming a foot, you're shaping a shoe, you're putting some nails in, you're shoeing a horse, right?
Right.
We take this mental I don't know what you want to call it. We put a pressure on ourselves that doesn't really exist.
Right.
So the essence of the mental game is it only matters if you make it matter. Once you understand that, then these tests are easy. You just go do that work every day. And then on the day, you just do what you do every day, and you just kind of ignore the judges. And it works amazingly.
Okay. Yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah. I wish I'd figured that out earlier.
Well, and you know what? That's another thing, is once you're on the other side of the testing, then you can see it a little bit different.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what you say to somebody before they get their journeyman or their ASF or whatever. You can tell them that all you want. But as soon as you say go with the watch, you can just watch the veins popping out of their neck. And
the adrenaline pumping.
Yeah, 20 degrees and they're sweating like it's 100.
Well, and then as far as preparing for certifications or big competitions, is there a plan that you would follow leading up to that? Or is it just a dynamic process that just kind of...
Well, I used to grind. When I was young, I would try to take off shoeing in February so I could get ready for convention. And I would at least forge 4 hours and film it. And then I'd try to watch the film. And this is VHS. I mean, I had a great big old, weighed 30 pounds, and I'd set it on one anvil, I'd work on the other, and the video was pretty poor. But I'd try to watch it and see what I could do different or what I could do faster. What I did wrong in my early career is I focused on speed. And being a rodeo cowboy, maybe that's why. But if you focus on really high quality and don't worry too much about the speed will eventually come.
Right.
So that's where you were amazing. Whenever you first got here, really, I mean, your work was beautiful. Your clinches were beautiful. Your finish was beautiful. Everything was beautiful, but it took too long.
Just took all day.
It did. It would take you a long time. And if you had to make 10 trips to the anvil to move a heel a fraction, you would do it.
Yeah.
Where me, on the other hand, I'd run between the anvil and the horse, and if I had to move the heel a fraction, maybe I could move the foot a little fraction with my rasp, Right. And so I had a very different mindset. And I think that cost me throughout my career, where I always got done in a contest, but I didn't always get done with the best work.
Right. And
so with Cody, as he was coming up, I made sure his quality was really, really good. And so then whenever the speed caught up with his quality, he was unbeatable. When he was doing the WCBs, he won, I think he won 8 out of 10 and was reserved at the other 2. And that's pretty unprecedented.
No kidding.
I was able to understand what I did wrong and help him do it right. So if you're listening to this and you're a young competitor, get your quality. Get your quality first. Make them flat. Put the nails where they're supposed to be. Make your nails fit. Make that right even if you don't get done in a class. And eventually, when the speed catches up to you, then you'll be like Brian. You'll be... Oh, seriously. You remember what your journeyman horse looked like? I mean, heck, that horse, he didn't want to grow a foot. He wanted to keep those forever. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Well, and then I guess that question sort of leads to another. You've told me a story about having some issues in one of your certifications where things weren't quite going well or potentially could have gone wrong. And I'm sure it comes up a lot. What do you do when things go a little askew for you in that kind of environment?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, you can do some mental practice before you get there, and you can imagine, breaking a hammer, or you can imagine getting a foot out of level or something like that, and then mentally have a game plan on how to proceed. But the biggest thing is that you actually have to push past it and not get so bogged down by the problem that you end up losing everything because you have a broken pritchel or because you have a foot that's not flat and you spend 20 minutes trying to fix it. You've got to know when to, I guess, cut bait and run would be the best way to put it.
Right.
When it comes to tools, have an extra. It's not that complicated,
Right.
Take 2 pritchels. Here's a really, really interesting thing. If you were to add up hours times days, 2 hours times 365 days gives you 730 more hours, right?
Right.
Well, if you get up at 5 a.m. instead of 7 a.m., you get 730 more hours in your life, which is actually another month. It's unbelievable, right?
Yep.
And I grew up with a man, my dad, he had a work ethic that was just, and his dad from the mines, I mean, my dad had worked in the mines as a kid. And my dad really kind of thought that anybody that slept past 4:30 was lazy. But he was pretty nice to my brother and I. We got to sleep till 5:30. I left home at 15, went to military school. And all my buddies thought it was pretty tough. And I was like, man, this is not as hard as home. When I was 7 years old, my dad walked in the living room and said, how you boys doing? I said, Dad, I can't see the TV. and it was gone that day. I did not get a TV till I was 17. So,
wow.
So my dad, and what a role model. I mean, I had some of the best parents on the planet. So the work ethic is something that, unfortunately, I don't see it as strong as I even did 20 years ago among students. But if you will think about it from a little bit different perspective of getting up just a little bit earlier, gives you that much more time in your life.
Right.
It's amazing what you can accomplish at 5 a.m. And even more amazing what you can accomplish at 4.
And there's nobody up to interrupt or distract you.
So, when I wanted to write my book, I don't have any more time. I still had to teach class. I still had to do clinics. I still had to shoe horses. I still had to take the kids to rodeos. So I just started getting up, sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning for 16 months. And that's how I was able to write the book.
Right.
So it's just you guys can achieve anything at all you want to if you just make a plan, stick to the plan, and figure out how you're going to achieve that plan. And getting a few more hours in the day, pretty easy to find if you just wake up early.
Really helps. So how many hours of sleep would you get if you were waking up at 2?
Now, I was pretty blessed. Until I was about 40, I could get away with 4 hours on a regular basis.
Okay.
Now, if I get 6, I'm pretty good.
Right.
And I'm 50 now. So by the time I'm 60, I'll probably need 8. But if I get 6, I'm okay. If I get 7, is probably better for me. If I get 8, I feel groggy all day. So 6 to 7 is my ideal.
Right. And then as far as nutrition goes, would you have to compensate for the fact you weren't sleeping as much with what you were eating?
I used to eat, and I still do. I probably consume 5,000 calories a day. I mean, it's not a good thing, but for many, many years, I'd eat 6 or 7 meals a day. And I would really eat all day long. And I still graze all day long. I mean, I got a bag of nuts and apple, fruits and berries, right? Like a good Canadian. But I try not to eat any processed sugar, and I don't drink any pop. I drink coffee, I drink water, and I eat kind of what I want to eat. I just don't eat sweets.
Right. Okay. Now, with all of this said, what advice would you give somebody who's just starting out their career in this business?
You've only got so many bend-overs or stand-ups in you, right?
Right.
It's really true. And if you take care of your body, if you do some fitness to balance yourself out, our bodies were made to get stronger doing the job that we give them to do. So, if you decide to start running, well, pretty soon you'll be a little leaner, so you're a little lighter. Your slow twitch muscles will start taking over a little bit. Your lung capacity will be better. Your oxygen will be better. All of this is your body adapting to the job.
Right.
With horseshoeing, the same thing happens. We'll get some really stout, fit people, and they're shaking like puppy poop and peach pits whenever they first get on their horse, right?
Yep.
And pretty soon their body is adapted. So you go to a convention and you see all these old farriers, and they have these great big beer bellies and pretty strong backs, but they're way out of balance.
Right.
And so if you'll do some exercises to keep yourself in balance, core stuff, if you forge a lot, you need to lift weights. You need to do curls. You need to do presses. You need to do reverse curls. You need to do some of those things that are going to balance yourself out. So that will give you longevity. And then you'll never quit learning. This trade will keep you challenged for your entire life.
For sure.
Which makes it a lot of fun.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, I love to learn. That's another thing. I'm always trying to learn something. I went to tattoo school and learned that to a level where I was really enjoying it. But airplanes kind of replaced
the newest thing, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been trying to learn Spanish for a couple of years. And so my Spanish is mucho mejor ahora, but so that's another thing. If you continue to try to learn, it doesn't matter what it is. If you want to learn, I'd like to learn how to play guitar, but I don't want to get up at 2 a.m. So
you might wake some people up.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the 4 a.m. and working on my Spanish, working on my Bible reading and my airplane stuff.
Okay. So for somebody who's in it further, would you have any different advice? Like say somebody 5 years in or 10 years in?
Testing allows you to keep it fresh, even if you are not challenging yourself through every horse. You can look at a test and say, man, I'd like to achieve that level. And there's a level out there for almost everybody. And then you have a target.
Yep.
So if you're a runner and you just run every day, but you don't really have a race coming up, you probably plateau at a certain level and it doesn't go anywhere. if you have a race coming up, all of a sudden you're running with a whole different perspective. You're running with a whole different mindset, and that leads to growth. So the testing in this industry, crazy, isn't it? People will spend thousands of dollars, drive halfway across the country, haul all their gear, and then pay to shoe a horse, and they can't wait to get home and shoe Monday because, man, they're refreshed by it.
Right. Yep.
How does that happen?
It's true.
I don't hear plumbers doing that or carpenters doing that.
Right.
You know, it's an amazing trade. And then the other side of it is you help horses.
Yes.
And here's the best piece of advice for business is start with a number instead of with just trying to kill yourself. So with the school, with Heartland Horseshoe School, we said we need to make X number of dollars. Well, in order to make X number of dollars, it takes this many students for this many weeks. And so our school is full at a certain point. We can't take any more because we've already met our goal.
Okay.
You know, we turn away a lot of students as a result because we're able to keep the quality high and we're able to keep ourselves fresh and we're able to do all that. If you're a young farrier, you say, I want to make $100,000. Okay. So if you charge $100 a horse and you do 1,000 horses a year, that's $100,000.
Right.
So if you do 1,000 horses a year and you work 50 weeks a year, that means you got to do 20 horses a week. So if you do 20 horses a week at $100 each, you're making $2,000 a week, but you're only doing 20 horses.
Right.
Right.
And not burning yourself out.
Right. And you can enjoy a quality of life. And so many people don't realize this until it's too late, but the quality of life is really not it's not a dollar figure.
That's true. You know? And it is an easy trap to fall into.
Oh, yeah. And
always adding one more.
Well, and the potential's there, right?
Yeah.
You know, as a horseshoer, once you get pretty good in this, you could kind of decide how much you want to make.
Right.
And so it's really hard because you get a guy that's been maybe making $10 an hour and he's bringing home $2,000 a month, and all of a sudden he's bringing home $2,000 a week, and he just doesn't know how not to say, well, I could do $3,000 a week. You know?
Right. Then with all of this, all that you've accomplished, focusing on so many things, did you ever experience burnout? And if so, what did you do to combat that?
When we first moved to Missouri, we were so broke for those first few years. Opening a school is not like running a shoeing business. You know, we shod horses to keep the school going in the early days. With a shoeing business, you get your customer, and then you have that customer again 6 weeks later, and that customer again 6 weeks later. With a school, you teach somebody how to shoe horses, and you may never have them back again.
Right.
And you certainly won't have them back for a full course. You know? So you're always it's a much harder deal than most people would believe. Anybody out there that runs a school, you know what I'm talking about. If you're thinking about running a school,
take caution.
Well, I would really strongly encourage anybody that wants to, but there are some things in it that you don't realize until you're already in it, you know.
Right.
So in the early days, I was getting kind of burned out because I couldn't afford to go anywhere. And once I started going back to contests and once I started going back to the clinics, that's what recharges your batteries.
Okay.
And so I'll even see some of these old guys that are like, man, I'm so sick of shoeing horses. And then they go to their first clinic or their first contest and maybe shoeing 20 years. And all of a sudden they're rejuvenated. Yeah. So if you're a farrier out there and you're suffering a little bit of burnout, this really is not a job. This is a definition of a person. This is a lifestyle. And it really is who you are if you're meant to be a horseshoer.
For sure. And
so go to a clinic, go to a certification, go expose yourself to other horseshoers, and it will recharge your batteries if you were meant to be a horseshoer. If you are burned out and you hate horseshoeing, life's too short, man. Go do something else.
Yeah. I don't know how people would do it if they didn't or weren't passionate about it.
There used to be some factories in this town, and several times the customer would be out there, man, I wish I was doing what you're doing. I should have had a trade. I should have, I sure wish I could do this. And I'm like, well, why can't you?
Right.
And they're like, well, I got benefits. I got dental. I've got retirement. I got all this other stuff. You can have that too, the horseshoer. You just got to pay for it.
Right.
That guy's paying for it. He just didn't know he's paying for it.
Right. Somebody else took that out of his pay for him.
Right. So he never saw it.
Right.
All those benefits are there for us if we're willing to pay for them. And you start deciding, well, is it worth that much money for me to have that benefit? And if it is, then you buy it. And if it's not, you don't. It's just like buying a car, right?
Right.
So I don't know. That's how I look at it.
Well, that's pretty good advice and probably a pretty good note to close on.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much, Chris. I really appreciate this.
We are blessed beyond measure. I mean, it's incredible what we get to do, but to get to do it with folks like you, Brian, it really, you've been a true friend, and we're so thrilled to call ourselves one of your friends. So,
well, every chance I get to come out here, it's like coming home, and I really appreciate that. You saying that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks. This portion of the podcast is called the Stratum Tictorium. These are the short answer, surface stuff questions, but it's okay if the guest wants to go deeper. The stratum tictorium is the outermost layer of the hoof wall. The thin layer of cells, also known as the hoof varnish or the stratum externum. Maybe you just learned a new word. I hope you learned some interesting facts about our guest too. Enjoy. What's your favorite book and most gifted to others?
Oh, I'd say the Bible. Another book that I really like a lot is called The Answers Book.
Okay, look that one up. What's your favorite brand of work boots?
I get some boots called the Mongrels from Australia, and I can't even get them in the U.S. So every time I go to Australia, or if I have a buddy coming over, I say, hey, listen, you need an extra suitcase because you're bringing me some boots.
Yeah, I've noticed them. They are unique, and I haven't been able to find them anywhere.
No, they're really nice, though.
Okay. Your favorite make of rasp?
I like the Heller XL right now. It's the green tang.
Right, yep.
Last batch, the smooth side's been clogging on me a little bit, but before that batch, they've all been really good.
Okay. What is your dream farrier rig?
You know, I don't really dream about farrier rigs. Pretty simple. I need a forge, I need an anvil, I need some regular shoes, and some bar stock. I don't need a grinder. I don't need lights. I don't want lights in a rig. I don't want to shoot after dark. And, I don't have one. It's really, really simple.
Okay. Your favorite rounding hammer?
Derek Gardner's what I use the most, but Cody, if you ever get to swing one of his hammers, have you used one?
Yep.
Yeah.
We built one together, actuso.
Cody's got like a special gift when it comes to these kind of tools.
He does, yes.
Yeah, but they're not really available. so
anyway. Not a mask out. You just have to come to the school for a while. And then you get your hands on it.
Well, you'd think, but I don't really have one.
Your favorite section of bar stock to work with?
Oh, three quarter. If that you can do a lot with 3/3/4. Okay. And I don't do big feet. You know, we're doing mainly quarter horses.
Right.
So 3/3/4, you can run down the toe and make it a nice 7/8 section. You can bump the heels easy. You can make really stout bar shoes. That'd be, if you could only have one section, that's what I'd get.
That's the one. Okay. Favorite pastime after work?
You know, Blueberry is a pretty special little dog, right?
Right. Yep.
And he loves to catch Frisbee, and I like throwing it for him. But I think taking him going flying, I don't know. Once you start flying, it's really, well, it's pretty amazing pastime. So I'd say flying right now.
Okay. Your favorite brand of keg shoe to use when you're not hand making?
Delta Challenger.
Okay.
So it goes on probably more like a handmade than most.
Okay. Your favorite type of horse to work on?
Just polite, you know. We do some rank horses with the school.
Right.
And so if even when I do a demo, I don't even care what the feet are like. I just want one that I can get under without having to fight.
The ideal number of horses to shoe all around in one day?
Oh man, it's 4. You know, okay. And I'm so blessed. My wife's such a great shoer that we go out together and we really can knock out some numbers pretty quick. But even if we were just shoeing together and didn't have a school, I think we'd limit it to 6. Okay. And we would live a very comfortable lifestyle and physically be pretty comfortable.
Right. Your favorite anvil?
Oh yeah, you got to go with Coleslaw, right? So the Coleslaw, obviously in the shop, if you're only going to have one anvil, that'd be it. But the Round Horn Legend and the Scott anvil, both of those, they have a super round horn. They have a very usable face. So those would be the 2 that I'd give a shout out to.
Right. Your favorite inspirational quote?
It's on the back of one of our T-shirts. The more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in battle.
I have seen that shirt many times.
Yeah.
Your favorite breed of dog?
Oh, yeah. The Australian Cattle Dog.
I knew you'd say that. Your preferred social media platform?
Social media. I guess I'd have to say Facebook. It's the one I know the most.
Same here. What do you use as your planner or agenda?
You know, we write it down in a monthly planner.
Okay.
And so I have a wall calendar that I put all the clinics and stuff so I know what's coming. But the day-to-day stuff is still handwritten. We tried to go to the phone. We tried to get it electronic, and oh my gosh, it was horrible.
I've struggled with that myself.
So we went back to the good old notebooks like we've had for 30 years.
Right?
It was awesome.
Don't fix it if it isn't broken.
Yeah.
Do you work out?
Every day. So I get up at 4 a.m. I answer emails till about 4:30, 4:45. I read my Bible and some IFR training for flight until roughly 6. And then at 6 o'clock, I'm in the gym, and I try to be up ready to get breakfast by 7.
Okay.
Working on breakfast by 7.
All right. Favorite brand of jeans?
Wrangler is not. It's just 'cause I don't know anything else. You know, I haven't really worn anything else.
Right. Do you meditate?
No, not in the sense of sitting down to say meditation, but I do pray quite often.
Okay. What would you have been if not a farrier?
You know, at 19, I would have told you a rodeo cowboy. And so if I had ended up being a rodeo cowboy, there's no telling where I would have ended up. So I think probably at the end of the day, I would have ended up ranching.
Okay. Before I end here, I want to say a few more words about Heartland Horseshoeing School. I had an incredible student named Elisa McDonald from the school work for me several years ago. I was impressed with how much foundational knowledge she had after attending just an 8-week course. Elisa hit the ground running and was a huge asset to me with my business. I decided I had better go and see what this place was all about. I took the blacksmithing course as it was open-ended and I could work on anything I wanted to. It was also in February, at a time of the year where I could get away from home for a week. That course changed my life. Chris and Cody, who run that particular course, showed me aspects of forging and shaping shoes that I had previously not even known to look for. They showed me that what I knew about shoeing was only the tip of the iceberg. There was so much more to learn. There always is. Ever since, I've gone back every chance I can. Not only do they possess an incredible amount of knowledge and skill, but they know how to impart it, how to show you in several ways until you can grasp it. The whole Gregory family work as a team to help their students become the best they can be. A true testament to this is how many familiar faces I see each year coming back to improve their skills, prepare for a competition, or work on their next certification level. If you're feeling stagnant or in a rut in your shoeing career, I implore you to look up the school curriculum and find a course you can attend. You will leave with a new sense of excitement about your job, and your clients and your horses will benefit from your new skills. If you're thinking about getting into this career and you're researching places to attend, Heartland will give you the foundation you need for a successful career in this business. Check them out at heartlandhorseshoeing.com. Well, that's all for now. Until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other out there. Thank you for listening.